Welcome to Flyp Academy. In this video we're going to delve into the fascinating character of Romeo, his actions, and the various tenets of his personality. This is a very common question to come up in the GCSE exam, so it's crucial to develop a really solid preparatory essay plan. We're going to structure this essay quite simply, with all the key points you need for the following question. How does Shakespeare present conflict in Romeo and Juliet? In your introduction, you may briefly touch on the following points that we'll be covering this video. Romeo is first introduced as a rather immature and fickle character. His character then seems to mature and evolve when he falls very deeply in love with Juliet. His most definitive characteristic is his passion and impulsiveness, which leads him to die in the manner he is introduced. As always, don't spend more than a sentence or two on each point, and make sure you're using literary devices that connect the points together. Given these points, we could conclude our introduction with a statement such as the following. Given these points, we could conclude our introduction with a statement such as the following. Shakespeare first and foremost presents Romeo as the very personification of passion. He is introduced as a hopeless Petrarchan lover, and though he seems to evolve in his love for Juliet, he dies impulsively in the throes of passion, which is consistent with how we are first to understand his character. This statement sets the frame of the essay and the points you will later delve into. Now let's look at some of the stronger arguments you can make, alongside their relevant quotes and analysis. First, we ought to consider how Romeo is at times a rather immature and fickle character. One particular scene, where Romeo interacts with Friar Lawrence, highlights this. Take a look at the following quote from Act 2, Scene 3. Romeo pays a visit to Friar Lawrence the morning after Capulet's feast, and the friar correctly assumes Romeo has been up all night and cries, "God pardon sin. Wast thou with Rosaline?" He appears to be concerned that Romeo has been sinful with the girl he has long desired, but Romeo tells him that he has forgotten everything about Rosaline, has fallen in love with Juliet, and wishes to marry her that very day. Friar Lawrence will agree to do what Romeo requests, but first he mocks Romeo's sudden change of heart. In chastising Romeo, the friar expresses his doubt that Romeo truly understands what love is. According to the friar, Romeo's rapid abandonment of Rosaline in favor of Juliet demonstrates that young men's love then rests not genuinely in their hearts, but in their eyes, which suggests his love is skin-deep rather than coming genuinely from the soul. This statement by Friar Lawrence holds equal weight today, as the concept of true love being blind is well understood and that love from the eyes is superficial. All in all, Shakespeare is presenting Romeo's immaturity and youth through the vehicle of pious and wise Friar Lawrence and the way he responds to him. The next important point we should discuss is how Romeo's character then seems to mature and evolve when he falls madly in love with Juliet, and how she brings out the sincerity and depth in him. Take a look at the following quote from Act 2, Scene 2. This speech depicts Romeo's consolidation and confirmation of his love for Juliet, as he repeats his original ode to her beauty from Act 1 Scene 5, but the intensity of his feelings is shown to grow and mature. Romeo provides an extended analogy in which Juliet represents the sun. This exemplifies Romeo's developing love because the sun is the source of all life, and Juliet is now vitalizing him to some extent. This might also refer to the heliocentric concept of the solar system, in which Romeo rotates around Juliet. With the phrase the envious moon, Shakespeare is referring to the Roman goddess Diana, who was traditionally connected with the moon. Diana signified chastity and virginity, hence the moon wears vestal livery because her followers would be similar to the vestal virgins of ancient Rome, who were followers or priestesses of a goddess. The sun and the moon also present an antithesis, which Shakespeare employs frequently throughout the play to heighten dramatic tension. Romeo's speech here therefore preserves some of his love-struck exaggeration from Act 1, but also shows how their shared love will intensify as they commit to remain together. During the course of the play, Romeo's love develops from a superficial longing to be in love to a profound and powerful passion. Shakespeare exhibits Romeo's growing maturity in his vocabulary as the play continues, as he starts speaking in blank verse as well as rhyme, which makes his English sound less artificial. The last significant point to analyze in this essay is how Shakespeare depicts Romeo's most definitive characteristic as being his passion and impulsiveness, which leads him to die in the manner he is introduced. Take a look at the following quote from Act 5, Scene 5. Romeo commits suicide on the spur of the moment, when he could have seen Juliet awaken, or waited for news from Friar Lawrence, who was initially advising them of their plan. He says, "I will lie with thee tonight," meaning he will die lying beside Juliet, but lie with also means make love with. Therefore Shakespeare presents Romeo as being a victim of tragic irony. Rather than joining his wife in love, he will join her in the grave. This is in keeping with his personality, since he remains determined and passionate even in death. When Romeo says, "O mischief, thou art swift to enter in the thoughts of desperate men," it means that evil acts are fast to enter the thoughts of desperate men. However, not all men are quite so impulsive as him, and the fact that he is just shows how natural it is for him to act quickly and despair rather than judge and consider. That Romeo commits suicide in an act of passion, without consideration or further proof, is the tragic undoing of his and Juliet's love story. In addition to fulfilling the prophecy made in the prologue, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. This is evidence of Romeo's hamartia, or fatal flaw, which are his fits of unthinking passion which lead to his ultimate demise. Further examples of this are in his killing Tybalt, the Capulet, which is the reason he is banished and separated from Juliet in the first place. Now that we have covered the key points about how Shakespeare presents Romeo, you should also be aware that you need to mention some contextual points to achieve the highest possible grade. Although you don't want to include the following analysis as a paragraph or argument by itself, consider how these contextual points and other ideas may be embedded within your written essay. Shakespeare uses the world of Romeo and Juliet by drawing on the historical prejudices of Italy. Because of the impact of Petrarch and other Italian poets, Italy was seen to be a romantic nation. The effect of Italian love writers like Petrarch on the English lexicon of romance is mocked in Romeo and Juliet. For instance, when Romeo confesses his love for Rosaline in the language of Petrarch's poetry, he fails comically, prompting Benvolio and Mercutio to mock him. Another example of local Italian color is the poison Romeo employs to murder himself. Italians were thought to prefer poison as a technique of assassination. When writing a conclusion, your aim should be to quickly and succinctly consolidate your points and final argument. When discussing the character of Lady Macbeth, we urge you to not add extra points, ideas, or contextual information to your conclusion that you haven't already discussed. Whereas in the introduction you framed what's to come, in your conclusion you simply fuse your analysis to hit home your argument. This concludes our video analyzing how Shakespeare presents Romeo in the play. In the following videos we will be doing more character study analysis, looking at themes and motifs, and essay plans for these topics.